Well, we hear it, maybe you feel it, that as neighbors, we aren't connected like we used to be. But with such a big social push now to be more loving, accepting, and inclusive, how did neighbors get lost in that shuffle? My next guest has recognized a few differences between neighborhoods past and neighborhoods present. He joins me to share lessons we can learn from the good old hood. Host of KSL Radio's Inside Sources, Boyd Matheson, joins me. And we're going to highlight a few losses, but with that, maybe punch home a solution, how we can maybe bring an angle of that or an aspect of that back into our modern day. Some of these changes that have happened are just evolution, right? Societal evolution and modern day evolution.
And so when you look at that, there are a lot of things that we have lost in that process. Sometimes our advancements actually take us back. So we always have to be careful about that. What we leave behind by choice is really interesting and really important for our neighborhoods. And so making sure we're finding those things that do keep us connected. So one thing I have found coming out of the pandemic is that there is still, even though we've come back together in schools and events and so on, people are still disconnected. They're feeling it. And the neighborhood is the place to find it.
We, in our research around this series, we noticed something interesting physically. Fences are getting taller. Chain link fence cells are gone. I mean, we put up those physical walls, and you say with that comes a loss of shared moments. You're not able to see your neighbor through the fence, over the fence, so you're not connecting that way.
Yeah, we're not having that across the fence conversation like we used to. And so finding just little simple opportunities to do that. Maybe you're just getting your mail out of the mailbox. Just take a look around the street, and most likely there'll be somebody on it. And just take an extra 30 seconds and go say hi. It makes all the difference. We have someone in our neighborhood who during the spring and fall, they'll actually, on a Sunday afternoon, they'll just have a little cooler with some frozen treats in it.
Oh, I love that.
And so people go walk around and they just stop. And the kids are happy and you get to chat. And so it's just being very intentional and very purposeful. There is a reason to connect. It's very powerful. It's great for our children and our grandchildren. Don't let the fence get in the way.
And it takes energy. I'm glad you said purposeful connection, because it does take energy to step outside of yourself. Sometimes I think our energy artificially gets zapped from the connections we think we're having on the phone or online that we don't feel like we're depleted. We think we don't have enough to give, but it's the cooler of treats, or it's the hello at the mailbox.
Yeah, we think we run out of energy, and we run out of energy before we run out of opportunity. And I guarantee you, if you intentionally go and make that connection, your anticipation of it may have been zero. You'll come away saying, I'm really glad I did that today.
Yes. You say we're also experiencing the loss of shared story.
Yeah, shared story is an interesting thing. We used to always think in terms of like these stories and communities. Even think of someone like President Biden, always talking about Scranton and his scrappy little town that he lived in. And those things really matter. But we've lost that interconnection. And there was a fascinating study back in 1960. Carl Frost went to this tribe in Africa. And he was part of helping them get electricity, this great modern breakthrough. And as part of that, each of the families in the village got one electric light bulb in their hut.
Oh, wow.
Great progress, they thought. Within about a month, the society started to unravel. And like, what is going on? And what was going on is at night, these families were all now going into their huts, staring at this illuminating globe in their hut, rather than doing what they used to do, which was sit around the fire and listen to the tribal storyteller, the shaman, talk about the values, the history, the connectedness of that society.
Wow.
And now we just look at our shining globes in our hands, and it's also causing us to lose that shared story.
Again, I love that. I love that example so much. And again, that takes effort to engage at that level and to share yourself and to listen. I mean, that takes effort, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. I mean, even just pointing out something simple. If you see one of the kids in the neighborhoods playing on the high school basketball team, or someone's in the play or whatever it is, just commenting on that, just stopping by and saying, hey, I see your daughter's in the school play. I think that's fabulous. It takes 30 seconds. That interconnectedness, that shared story is priceless.
You mentioned a play. Our kids in our neighborhood were just part of an elementary school play, and I was so touched with how many neighbors showed up that didn't have children on the stage, that didn't have a grandkid, you know what I mean, whose name was on the playbill, but just showing up to support those kids next door. It was really touching to me.
Yeah, and that's a great motto for all of us. Show up for your people. Show up for your neighborhood.
And share those stories. The loss of shared service.
Yeah, we lose that a lot because, again, we're so busy and we're thinking, oh, I donated $10 online, or I did the, ice bucket challenge or whatever.
I did my part.
I've done it. Yeah. And we've often lost that. This is one of my favorite things about my neighborhood is every year we do a 1K donut run. Not 10K.
Tell me more. I
Not
want to know.
10K, not 5K. It's 1K. Denise Anderson, who is our neighbor, has been doing this for years, and it's always right after Election Day in November. And everybody comes out, and there's T-shirts, and the race is over before it even starts.
Sure.
I mean, it's 1K. It's not even a full street.
Yeah.
But then everybody hangs out. We raise a little bit of money for a good cause. But then it's amazing to me. People will stay for hours and just have hot chocolate and donuts and talk and reconnect.
That's fantastic.
And it's that shared purpose, that shared service that really brings people together.
That is fantastic. And donuts, too.
And donuts.
Fantastic.
You can't go wrong with that.
This last loss maybe tugged at my, it's a simple one. It's even, some people might argue, a trite one, but it tugged at my heart, I think, the heaviest. I looked over your list, and that's the loss of small talk.
Yeah, it is becoming a lost art, because we're either staring at our phones while we're at the checkout line, if we're at the checkout line at all, or if we're getting the mail, and we're so zeroed in on that we often miss that connection to make eye contact and to just ask a question. I always tell people, if you can just imprint that on the front of your brain, if you must speak, ask a question, and then learn from Brooke and ask a great follow-up question.
Thank you.
If you can do those two things, the connectedness that will mean, not just for the other person, the difference it will make for you is absolutely transformational.
I find myself thinking, that's so well said, Boyd. I find myself thinking, too, you don't have to get to the point. Like, sometimes the pace of the day or the pace of my life drives me to this point. Like, I've got 5 minutes with Boyd, I'm going to get right to it. Or I've got, I'm in the checkout line for a very short period of time, I'm going to get right to it. But, like, we don't have to get to the point.
We don't.
We can just be,
Just be still. I think we can be still in those moments, because then you can be present. And again, it's one of the most holy and most powerful things we can give to another person, is our time, our attention, and listening. And if you ask a good question and you're not in a race to get through the checkout line, or you're on to the next thing, or you're 4 to-do list items down, and just be present, it'll make a difference in their world. But I guarantee you, it'll make a difference in your world, too.
Amen. Amen, brother. You are a great spokesperson for this topic. And I know these are themes that you weave into your conversations all the time on your radio show. How can we listen in?
You can listen to KSL News Radio, 1 to 3. Every day we're on there, and we try to have the conversations not about politics. We talk about politics so we can comment on society, and we comment on society so we can get to principles and the people who live them. And that's the exciting part.
Well, I guarantee you'll end that show after be listening better as well. I feel that way every time I do. Thank you, boys.
Thanks, Brooke.